whoever wants to ask it. In determining risk appetite and tolerance, who in sort of companies and organizations would be involved in the process, especially for companies and organizations that conduct business in international areas where perhaps cultural practices may be different or questionable at best?
Okay. So in defining the risk appetite statement for what I just went through, that involvement has to involve not only the C-suite, not only the business unit leaders, but it needs to go down to at least that manager role in an organization. There's different ways of getting it. In a broad company with a large footprint, surveys may work, but surveys may not work because they may be, from a culture perspective, unsure as to what all this means and how it's going to be used, right? So it does help if you do town halls. You can do them remotely. You can do them physically. But it does help to put a face next to the program, especially when you're going into remote locations. But for our approach and kind of what we've seen in some leading organizations is that they're going out and canvassing a broad net. It's not just a white ivory tower exercise where someone's saying, here you go. Here's the risk appetite for the company, and let's move on.
Yeah, and this is Sarah, and I'd very much echo that. I think if you're starting from zero, then you absolutely need to do the sort of top-down process. So yes, in terms of crafting the headline risk appetite statement, then we would absolutely advocate that it's got to be crafted at the sort of highest level of the organization. It's got to have the board ownership. And there's normally some degree of kind of educating and workshopping you have to do at that C-suite and board level to kind of get the ball rolling. But then it becomes this cascade process to Ray's point where you actually need to get managers in the building actively engaged. So once you've decided what that cascade looks like in terms of how you structurally organize and manage your business reporting, then you can identify how that risk appetite statement needs to be cascaded down into more distinct statements for the parts of the business, and that's when you can start to get the engagement at that level. It's also where you can start to identify those cultural disconnects that Ray referred to, where perhaps the board has a sense of how much risk it's willing to pursue in its activities, but actually maybe managers on the ground have a very different day-to-day risk appetite, and you can start to iron those things out and put the structure in around it to really codify what's already happening in the business. Everybody has a risk appetite. It just isn't written down and doesn't have those risk tolerances. All the good stuff that Ray's talked through in terms of making sure that the vision that the leaders have in the business aligns to the risk appetite that people are already exercising in the business. So there are different ways of doing that, and Ray's talked through the kind of survey pieces, but definitely there has to be some workshopping at various levels to get people actively engaged in the concepts and getting this stuff codified for the business.